Внимание государственникам Российской Федерации. Россия, священная наша держава, Россия, любимая наша страна, могучая воля, великая слава, Твою достояние на все времена. Славное Отечество, наше свободное, братских народов, союз вековой, советский.
And action. Yes, everyone. All right. Start with the Russian national anthem. Oh, I like it. It's great. But the Soviet national anthem is my favorite. It's your boy, your comrade, Soviet patriot, or F. Mobin, your movie director and rapper Afghanka. Welcome by new podcast of mine. I'm now here outside, in this beautiful weather today. Yeah, it's beautiful. So I thought, why not? Let's make another podcast like I did with the Battle of Berlin. Which podcast did I did also? I think that's that podcast only. So let's talk about today about the 12th of June, Russian Independence Day. What it means? Well, for my parents, they were in that time there when it all happened, when the Soviet Union was fallen apart. Of course, the Soviet. Did you know also Russia was not just called Russia? Well, during all the time of the Cold War, it was called Soviet Russia. For many Western European people don't know, but that's what the Russian people also called the land. Not only Россия, but Советская Россия. That means Soviet Russia. So, why I'm telling you this, what is going on right now, of course, the war in Ukraine, and Putin, he's so, oh my god, he's a disastrous president, I hate him, and he's, what he just made him, my communist Soviet poster, so, what do you want to tell you, on this day, the 12th of June, 1991, the drunkard, Boris Yeltsin, he proclaimed the new Russian Federation, or as it's an autonomous sovereign state. So the USSR was ceased to exist, as the man said in what was the History of War, so Secrets of War documentary. He said it in the last part. So what happened on this day? Well, my parents were there in Moscow when it all happened. They were there. As I told you in my last podcast about Gorbachev and Yeltsin, how they destroyed the whole USSR. And what happened on this day, Yeltsin was proclaiming, as you can see in the picture, he's proclaiming that Russia is now, a democratic Russian Federation state and all of this. So, my parents weren't happy. Because the whole USSR was ceased to exist. As I said, it was gone for good, as the song Goodbye Forever, a song that I found on YouTube. You can search up that song. It's about that time, that year. So, why did my parents then decide to go to the Netherlands, where I live? Well, because what I told you in the former podcast, the years after, it became so fucking chaotic and such a disastrous years that the Russian people never want that again. Believe me. You can ask a Russian about how was the 90s. Well, I think he would say terrible. Not Ivan the Terrible, it was terrible. Those years, those days were so disastrous and so rampage, and I'm also going to tell many people here who still believe that Soviet Union, communism is bad, socialism is bad. No, you're all dumb and wrong, as my mom would say. It was good, right, but at the end, what Gorbachev did with his reforms, yesterday I also watched a YouTuber who also explained what his reforms mean, and he also said it was all wrong. But if he could, if he could save the USSR, as the video was saying, if Gorbachev saved the USSR, then he never should have made those reforms. But he did it more economical. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about today. So what does it mean for many Russians Of course, in today in Russia, it means holiday. For some old, as my friend on Instagram, he doesn't like this day, and I also saw a reaction on this beautiful. This is also a song that was made in the USSR. It's called "Ти Россия, моя Россия." It says, "You're my Russia," and this woman also said the reaction. I could literally understand what she was saying, but I translated better, and she was saying that this day is a black day. For my parents, it is, because they don't like this day, because that day, when they were there in Moscow, they saw the whole country collapsed. My parents didn't like that. Now it's history for them, but they still remember that day. I wasn't born. I was born in 1995. As you can see, I also have 95. So, I was born in the year. So, I was born in the year when Russia was in war with Chechnya, with the Chechens. Their most, horrific enemy they ever have fought in the 90s. Not the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, but the Chechens. They were the worst enemies they ever have fought. Because, the Chechen people fight like wolves, and they did. Not just because of their nationalism, but because of their radicalism, believe me, if you know the names Shamil Basayev, Ashlan Mashkadov, if you search those guys, you know what I'm talking about. And their president was also a radical Islamist, Chechen nationalist. My mom and my father told me a lot about them, and I searched it up, and they were right. But Putin made an end of them. He made an end of their lives, and that was a great job. Because if he didn't, then they would take more and more cities in Russia. I think that people won't even like that anymore. So, with the war in Ukraine right now, it is bad. It's terrible. I don't like it for both the Russian people and the Ukrainian people. My mother have never met Ukrainians before. I asked her, "Did you ever met Ukrainians?" She said no. But she knows the history. She knows the history. Many people here in Europe are so dumb, we must say, they don't understand nothing about Russian history. Because if they have looked better in their history book on school, if you're looking at Russia, Ukraine was once a part of Russia. It was called Kievan Rus. And what does that mean? Many centuries ago, I'm not talking about only, medieval ages. I'm talking about before the medieval, before Jesus came, before Allah came, what you can go. Before that all came, the Slavic people, or as they are Russians called, were found or growing up in Ukraine, which is called in the capital of Kiev. But it was once called Kievan Rus. That was a little kingdom that was led by Prince Rurik or Oleg the First. After the Vikings, they had also beef and fight with, because my mom said that our blood is, of course, it has some compared relatives to the Vikings. We have that blood. Because the number 1, it literally means Odin. Adin, and that's the name of the Norse god. So, now you know. It is the name of the Scandinavian god, and the Russian people believed once in him. So that, I'm not talking lies. My mom all know this. I also told that to a Norwegian guy who I met on my vacation last year in Crete. I also said to him, Russian people have Viking blood, because they are their ancestors are from their, how you can say it, they are the distinct distance, from the Vikings. And that's why, Russian people also fight so, barbaric, I won't say that. My mom said we're not that type of people, but in the wars, we fight like barbarians. Yes, we do. That's not because of Slavic blood, but it's more about the Vikings blood. Yeah, Vikings, But what I just saying, today it is Independence Day. It is a celebration, a holiday for Russians. Drinking vodka, enjoying with, caviar, bread, that's typical Russian, meal, that's the Russian culture. And it was just also in the Soviet Union, so that doesn't make any difference. It's Russian culture was always Russian culture. Even in the time of the Tsar, that was always like that. Это сами наши культур, русский культур. You can hear it. So, you know what I'm saying in Russian. So, what I can say about, about Putin, he's a bit, I never was, in the past I liked him. My mom and my father said, he was a great leader in the 90s because he saved a lot of problems. And, Kievan, you can search yourself, but the 90s were the worst times ever the Russian people have ever been through. Because that's also the reason why my parents came here and not just staying in Russia. Because if they were staying there, I was born there, not here. So, yeah, they came here in 1993. I was born 2 years after. And, yeah, what does it mean? For Russians, it means freedom. It means independence. But still, there are some people, of course, here today. Of course, if you're talking about war in Ukraine, it means really something angry, or are you saying... It means something patriotic and nationalistic to them. Because they feel like real Russians. In the Soviet Union, you had more... Yeah, you had so many different nationalities, and you had 15 republics. That's a lot. I was also very shocked when my mom told me that. What? You kidding me? 15 republics? Yes, he said, yeah. 15 republics, 50 sisters, as I said in my former podcast. So, yeah, that's a lot. You did not have only Russians. My mom had also friends from Georgia, Azerbaijan, if you know the country, And she also made a recipe for us. It was called Sakishvili. I don't know how you sing the Georgia recipe. I need to ask her again. But, Russians really feel, not really nationalistic, but they feel like a brotherhood. Bratский союз, or brother union, or братских народов. That means brotherhood people, or brother peoples. So... After in the end of the 80s, that nationalism really grew up, like it happened also in Yugoslavia, if you're looking at the Serbian people. In that time, after the end of the 80s, Yeltsin brought that nationalism really back to the Russians. It wasn't Gorbachev, it was Yeltsin who brought that back, because he felt more Russian than Soviet. And the Russian people also felt that nationalism too, because, they felt Russian identity. No more Soviet nationality. You know what I'm saying? My parents, well, I think they still believed in the Soviet nationality. They still were, but, I don't know. I should ask him, how do you feel when you were in, after 1991? How do you feel? What kind of nationality did you really feel? Did you feel Russian or Afghan? I think my parents would say, my mom should say, I'm still where I'm Russian. My father would say, I'm Afghan. But Afghan was not a nationality of the Soviet Union. Tajik, which I am part of, my father, that was a nationality. Tajikistan, or Tajikistan, SSR. That was one of the 15 republics. And I am from Tajik origin, as my father. Because, you have in Afghanistan, you have so many tribes, like Tajiks and Uzbek, blah, 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 blah. So, what I can tell you, today about, it's a special day, like 9th of May. Oh, yeah, that podcast that I made, I think I made it here or inside, Russia today, it is a mighty strongful country, but with much problems, and that one problem is the man himself who is being in charge of power for 30 years, who shouldn't be gone. The war, what he made and he invaded was a disaster. My mom is still saying, we're going to win. We Russians never give up. I believe her. Yeah, that's her nationality. Yeah, that's my name. She has the nationalistic behavior. I told you in some other podcasts, my mother has that nationalism in her mind. That's Russian mentality. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. So, my father is he's not a nationalist himself. He is more, more Afghan nationalist. Yeah, I think he's more compared to that. And both my parents are atheists. So don't think that they're religious. My father was religious. He was. But when he came here, he turned his mind because he didn't like the religion anymore, because he've learned that in the Soviet Union. But did you also know this, that religion was allowed? Because it's also what these Europeans and these Americans don't understand. And a real Russian would say, we were religious, but yeah, we were oppressed by the Soviet regime. But we were allowed. My mother told me this story. Her father was communist, and her mother was Orthodox. So they were both married. So what does that make any difference? Yeah, it's about love. It's not about what you believe in. It's what you believe in. It's what you believe in a relationship. So that was just allowed in the Soviet. I'll talk that in another podcast about religion in the USSR, because I saw many YouTubers who really got it wrong. I know this lady who I also follow on Instagram. She's a great communist lady. She knows the truth, because there was one woman on Instagram, Natasha's Russia. She all said bullshit. My mom asked me, where the fuck did you get this bullshit information from? And she wasn't even born, I think, in the Soviet Union. So she's saying to me, she knows nothing. She's dumb. My mother was born in the Soviet Union, in Moscow, in 1973. What I know, yes. So she knows everything about. I think maybe most things she forgot, but she knows her history, and she knows everything what happened in her time. So she never told. I asked her, is it true that if you can, also there was a guy on Instagram who was a real nationalist. Oh my God, I really hated that guy. But he said his uncle was arrested because he was going to church and did. No. My mom told me the truth. And she told me he was arrested because he had friends of the Komsomol. What is the Komsomol? The communist youth. Pioneers, I'll talk that in that other podcast. So, yeah, let's forget about that. Let's go back to where I was. So, yeah, today it's Independence Day. It's great, for America, too, on the 4th of July. I respect that, They're both superpowers. They have their history, of course, and, yeah, I love Soviet history, of course, Russian history, But, if you compare it to 4th of July, the Americans, or the English people, as we call them, because they're not really real Americans. The real Americans is, my best friend told, of course, were the native Indians. But okay, so the Americans, or the English, they of course were celebrating, for like Russians, their independence of the British. They're the British king, and of course Russians are celebrating because the fall, they were gone or just broken off from the whole Soviet Union. Did you also know that Kazakhstan was the last republic who was still the Soviet Union? Yeah, it's true. I also saw that video, and my mom also know that Kazakhstan was the last Soviet republic who still was the Soviet Union. But yeah, this President Nazarbayev, who was in that time, he just also gave it up. I think, he also broke because Yeltsin, paid him, and he said to him, it's over with this, just stop. And he said, okay, I'm going to be Kazakhstan. So, that's all I want to tell you, my friends. And today it's also, what Yeltsin did back in the time, it was really bad. Many Russians, of course, celebrate, but they still know, because I know what their reaction was, and my mother also, my father knows, that day was bad, really bad when that happened. But for Russians today, of course, and many years ago, they celebrate this day as their Independence Day. I respect that, my parents, but my parents were that day, and it wasn't, people were celebrating, but these people who've lived in Soviet, they were not celebrating this day because they felt they're betrayed by Gorbachev and Yeltsin, because they were the ones who broke this whole country in part, and Yeltsin destroyed it with tanks. And I said, the civil war that broke out in Black October, and that's the reasons why my parents decided to go here because it was not safe there. There was chaos everywhere, believe me. They told me a little bit, yeah, how they came, but I know the real reason, and I know the truth. Because what I saw, of course, what happened, as I told you before, in the 90s, it were the worst times ever. And Putin made that great. He did. He did great things. He built the Russian economy. He made sure that stagnation, stabilization. He made sure that the old KGB, who became the FSB, that's the new KGB. He was also fighting the war in Chechnya, and he made all of it. He ended the wars. He killed the terrorists. He made the Russian economy better, and of course, he made sure that Russia was being secured. Border security and police force. Don't. It's just bad, corrupted as well. But the stabilization and the security was really going better, and everybody was happy with him. Putin became the man of the century because after when Yeltsin was, he done enough with presidency, he gave all his power to Putin, and Putin made it just better. But what Putin also made, his mistakes, is that he became so obsessed with things, also with his war, that it's not even gonna win. It's the hopeless, the devastated war, as I can call it. And even my parents will say, it's a devastated, hopeless war, which we in Europe getting so frustrated, so attacked. Not with guns or tanks, but more with prices. The economy is going so worse, and the prices are going so high. It's unbelievable, my friends. Because, of course, of the war and the government who's spending everything with money and ammunition. It's typical capitalism, of course. Capitalism, you know what I'm saying, capitalism. The worst bad system than communist socialism. But you know what I'm saying, And Putin the problem is that he is getting so much power that he can't lose it. He is a dictator himself. But he's a bad, corrupt dictator. As my mom said, yeah, he's a smart fox, yeah. But he's a bad guy. Of course, Zelensky is also bad. Well, I don't maybe say he's not a bad guy, but he's also not a nice guy. He's a corrupt guy. He also smoke. I don't know, using cocaine, and I don't know. He's a little big baby. For me, he's a little baby who's crying to NATO, oh, give me money, give me money. Russia is attacking me. In which, yeah, I think, go solve your own problem with him. It's not our problem. But yeah, our government is so... Yeah, fucking assholes. They're so capitalist, bad, yeah, mafia. Like Putin himself. So, I don't say that Putin did bad things at all, but last many years, he's making bad things, and he's not doing it great for Russia. Because you have many problems there, as my mom said. There's still chaos and a lot of corruption. There are many, construction, what you can say to call buildings, infrastructures, that always mean not being finished or built. So if Putin is a great president, if everybody's saying, why is he not taking care of those problems? The Russian people are not even, yes, some rich or poor, but the problem is the ways and the bridge, everything what has been built became old, but I think in more than 10-50 years, he has done nothing to do that. That's why you're seeing also those funny YouTube videos, which cars are getting crashed in Russia, people are doing crazy stuff, because the Russian people themselves are being lazy, drunk, and so, I don't say dumb, but they lost their mind. They lost their mind because of the chaos and corruption. And my mom told me the truth. She knows what she's saying, and everything what she's saying is true. I saw all the videos. It's funny to watch, it's great, but if you're looking at the country, if you're looking what they're doing there to people, it's disastrous. And now with the war in Ukraine, I don't like this war. I wish this war would stop. And I wish that, of course, maybe what I made this idea, well, if you know that guy, Zhuganov become president, the leader of the Communist Party. But what I said, this plan, that Ukraine should be split up and they should build a DMZ. That's the only solution. What I can tell you, there is no other solution. Because if they're only going to not argue and they're arguing and they're going to be discussing this, Putin would just send more tanks, more vehicles, more planes. But I can tell you that I saw also videos that his war is getting so worse that his economy is getting like stagnation. It's going to be collapse because he's spending all his money in that war, and the Russian people are getting more poor of it, and also getting sick of it. Oh, that feels better. But you know what I'm saying, and so it's getting really worse for Russia than for Ukraine and us. But we're also getting attacked by this economic crisis that has been, of course. But this economic crisis is getting so much worse than, I don't know what I can say about this. It's not only capitalism; it is imperialism, and Putin is showing himself. He's an imperialist snake. He's an imperialist dictator. But you know what I don't understand? You know, also my what I should ask my mom. Of course, she knows why so many Russian soldiers have died. Boys of 18, 19, 20 years old for his cause, because it was not a war that was just that Russia was attacked. No, Russia attacked Ukraine, and they sent so many Russian generals being killed. And what I also say is so in that video that Putin is being hard or impossible to overthrow, but everybody should blame it to him. He is the one who made those orders, not the generals themselves. He is doing it. Every time if you're seeing a picture of what I showed you, he's discussing every time in the Kremlin what they're going to do. He's giving the orders because he is the big boss. He's the big boss of the Kremlin boss. He is giving the generals, everybody, the orders, just as the Soviet government did. So he's literally playing like a Soviet leader, but then a capitalist and a democratic corrupt leader. But he's showing that everybody has to be blamed, but not himself. And that's totally wrong. It's unfair. He is the one who should be blamed for his own actions that he did 2 years ago when he invaded Ukraine. And it's bad. You know, if I'm looking to the civilians who are getting attacked, killed, it hits me. I mean, also for the Russian civilians, they getting so enough of this war, but Putin is just brainwashing them and saying, oh, they're bad. And also about those Nazis, I saw a YouTuber who told in the video that they're not Nazis there. The only Nazis or neo-Nazis are those Azov battalion, maybe you know them. Those are neo-Nazis. But Zelensky has none of them. You have a government that is called Svoboda. That's the nationalist, Nazi party. Yeah, they are. But it's just a party. But they have no power in there. And Zelensky is a Jew, so they have nothing more in common with him. It's just a party, nothing else. And of course, I'm also going to make the podcast where I'm going to tell you about Stepan Bandera, the so-called Ukrainian people's hero, which he's not. But yeah, and Ukrainians who are brainwashed, and also doing the Hitler salute, which is totally wrong. But I can tell you why they're doing it. But I'm telling that in the next podcast. It has to do with, of course, the Second World War. But yeah, that's it, my friends. Hope you like my podcast about today, Independence Day. You know, I love Russia. It's a country where my mom was born. And if you're looking at that country, man, it's the most beautiful country of the whole world. You have mountains, rivers, you have so great landscape, because look at that country, it's so fucking big. Man, I can put the Netherlands more than 1,000 times in that country. Yeah. You know, it's a very beautiful, magnificent country. My mom also, she loves the country, but we're living here. But she told me much beautiful places. And of course, I like so many European countries here. I like Scotland. I also being in Austria 3 years ago. or 2 years ago when I was on vacation. It's also a beautiful country, but Russia is still it's a really beautiful country because my mom comes from it. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's still big. Yeah, they also, did you also know that Alaska was once a part of Russia? So Russia was also much bigger than only in the Soviet Union. Believe me, that was in the time of the Tsar. They were much bigger. But yeah, what they did, when they gave Alaska to America, yeah, that was a dumb mistake. But yeah. Yeah, we learned good history about it. So yeah, that's it, my friends. I'm gonna end this podcast, so I'll see you another time, and let me know if you have questions or else. And I sing to you, yeah, to the Russians, с днем Великий день независимость, Великий день Российской Федерации. Слава России! До свидания. So I'll see you later. Have a nice evening.